Very good afternoon to all the viewers and very good afternoon to the Parul Institute of Law, Parul Institute, all the staff members as well as the student of the Parul Institute of Law, Parul University. I warm welcome Honorable Justice First Class Magistrate Mr. Chetan Limbasia, who is currently a sitting judge as a first class magistrate at Anand District Court. So I warm welcome to Mr. Chetan Limbasia, sir, Honorable Judge of the Anand District Court. First of all, I would like to just tell about Mr. Chetan Limbasia, sir. Mr. Chetan Limbasia, sir, was doing practice at Gujarat High Court. He dealt with the various matters in the civil and criminals as well as the land revenue appeals, corporate laws and copyrights, patent and trademark, cyber law, real estate law, and municipal laws. Pertaining to his master degree, he has done master degree from Maharaja Sihaji Rao University of Baroda, and he has have done the graduation with a very good CGP also from Maharaja Sihaji Rao University of Baroda, and he has done his bachelor degree in law in 2013 and 2016 from Maharaja Sihaji Rao University of Baroda. As per in 2019, on 20th May 2019, he was appointed by the Gujarat High Court for the first class judicial magistrate by the Honorable High Court. So I warm welcome, sir, to you on this webinar. Today the topic of the webinar is the latest amendments in the labor laws, and now I will just like to request Dr. Akhil Sayyed, sir, to facilitate Chetan Limbasia, sir. Akhil, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Thank you very much. I am very much delighted that today we do have a sitting judge from Anand District Court. Anand is my karma bhumi. I practiced for the decade before the court of law at Anand District Court, and I am staying since long there, and I am very much happy that this is our first collaboration with DLSA Anand. We do have very good coordination with DLSA Vadodara, and we have number of programs conducted at DLSA along with the DLSA Vadodara, the Taluka Legal Service Committee at Waghodia. And very recently, I had an opportunity to meet some of the other honorable PDJ Saabs of nearby districts. And that is what Dr. Rajesh has taken a very good initiative to start going beyond the state of Vadodara, because this pandemic has reduced the distances. It was a little difficult to travel from one district to another district, and somehow there were the issues of the jurisdictions also. But when we talk about a digital platform, online platform, the jurisdiction for being a resource person does not restrict anyone, and it becomes very easy and convenient. So it is a very good start. I personally know Mr. Chetan Limbasia, and I have heard about his contribution to the judiciary at such a young age. He is doing very well. And today's topic is also very much relevant when both the houses have already passed the two bills on the labor laws. So this is a topic Dr. Rajesh has chosen very cleverly, anticipating that isi ki charcha hogi kuch dinon mein, and he has grabbed this opportunity. So I congratulate Dr. Rajesh also for the same. I'll take also an opportunity to introduce Faculty of Law, Parul Institute of Law, that it is a constituent college of Parul University, which was been established by the Gujarat Private University Act 2015. Second Amendment Act, and in 2016 Faculty of Law was been developed, and Parul Institute of Law is a creation of Parul University. Since then we do offer 5 years program in BLLB, BCom LLB and BBLLB. And thereafter we started 3 years LLB program. So we do have 3 years LLB program, and also 1 year PG regular LLM program. that is as per the UGC regulation 2013. We are one of the best university in the state of Gujarat which offers this 1-year LLM program, and that too we lead among all the university by offering the largest number of specialization. That is, we do offer specialization in LLM in intellectual property law, international human right law, international law, public policy and governance, environmental law, and criminal and security law. Apart from this, we do have MPhil program, PhD program, and I am proud to share that many of the judicial officers have done their LLM last year recently, and this year also Honorable High Court of Gujarat has granted the permission to the respective judicial officers to take the admission at the Parul Institute of Law for their pursuing LLM. And I am very much thankful to the judiciary by making a proposal of giving incentive to the judicial officer for their further study. It is very important when we are going to talk about the labor law. I extend that horizon of labor law into the service law, and it is very important for any person in the service, the development. The Supreme Court of India has mentioned in one of the landmark judgment that the stagnation in the service creates the kind of dissatisfaction in the minds of the employee, and if any of the employee pursue the further study and get an opportunity to get promoted or getting incentive, it is very good step of the Indian judiciary. So I welcome all of you. This is Mr. Chetan. It is not just the beginning. There is going to be the series of such activity with different DLSAs. Thank you very much. Rajesh.
Yes, so thank you, Dr. Akhil sir. You have elaborated and a very fantastic speech by sir. And he has talked about all the provisions, all the facilities which is available at Parul University. We have having lots of 6 different courses at LLM. So it was very fantastic, sir. Now I would like to allow, and I will like to just say to Mr. Chetan Limbasia sir to start the topic with your presentations, and if you want to present, you can present also. And at the last, sir, we have certain questions pertaining to the new amendments and pertaining to the labor law. So at the last 10 minutes, sir, we will ask some questions to you, sir. Okay. So now the session is to you, sir. Chetan sir, now you can start. Okay. Your microphone is off. Chetan sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it appears that I am visible and audible both to
Yes.
all of the participants.
Yes,
And,
exactly. Yeah, please.
First of all, I make it clear that we are not here to condemn, approve or disapprove any law, but we are here to just discuss the latest provisions, because earlier, since before the independence, and if we compare the laws before the independence, after independence, and the present amendment, we can understand that the complexity has been removed. And today I am going to present you one PPT which I have made after a deep research, and I have only tried to cover few certain provisions which are key provisions and which is directly affected to the proceeding in the dispute resolutions. Okay, so I am sharing it now and we can start the lecture.
Yes.
Okay. So our today's topic is the latest amendment in the labor laws 2020. It is organized by Parul University and District Legal Service Authority Anand. Now, we should first focus that what are the 4 codes which has been drafted and consolidated. Recently, total 29 of central laws have been codified in 4 laws. that are Industrial Relations Code 2020, the Code on Social Security 2020, Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code, the Code on Wages. Now, these four codes are enacted and formulated according to the report and recommendation of Second National Commission on Labour. The Code on Wages has already been enacted but yet to be implemented, as it is approved by the Parliament, but President has not yet given his assent. And as we all know that Lok Sabha has passed the bill on 22nd of September 2020 and Rajya Sabha has passed them all in 20th of September 2020. So now we just have to only wait for the notification issued by the government in the Gazette. Now, first of all, we talk about the Industrial Relations Code. Earlier, this Industrial Relation Code is known as the Industrial Dispute Act. Now they have eliminated the term dispute and they have introduced a new term like relation, which means that relations between employer and employees is been now focused, and they have made each and every efforts to minimize the conflicts and dispute between the employer and employees. Now, this Industrial Relations Code 2020 has been proposed for amalgamating, simplifying, and rationalizing three acts, that is Trade Unions Act, Industrial Employment Standing Order Act, Industrial Dispute Act 1947. They have not totally repealed this act, but they have taken down certain provisions from these three acts. They have simplified in a manner that will deal with the present or future disputes. So they have tried to amalgamate these three codes. Now, first of all, we understand in a simple language that what are these three codes. So, Trade Unions Act are the laws related to the trade unions. What is Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act? That certain condition of employment in industrial establishment or undertaking has to be codified. Like there are suppose 100 employees employed in any industry or undertaking, then they have to define and codify the standing orders related to their leaves, wages, their working hours, etc. Now, Industrial Dispute Acts are earlier known to resolve the disputes between owners and their workers. And if we can make it more simple, then it is related to investigation and settlement of industrial disputes. Now, here there is one provision which we all need to understand, that they have increased the limit of workers from 100 to 300. So this code states the provision for standing order will be applicable for every industrial establishment wherein 300 or more than 300 workers are employed or were employed on any day of the preceding 12 months. So there must be certain conditions needed to be satisfied, that the employees must be 300 or more than 300 and the establishment must be established for preceding 12 months. Now, by introducing this code, they have increased the threshold limit for the requirement of standing order from 100 to 300. Now, standing orders literally means the rule of conduct for the workmen employed in the industrial establishment. This implies that industrial establishment up to 300 workers is not required to furnish any standing order. Earlier, it is mandatory for any establishment more than having 100 employees need to codify the standing order. Now, if we understand that 16 states of the India had already increased the threshold limit for closure, layoff, detachment firms with 300 workers without government permission. Earlier, even any establishment having 100 employees cannot shut down or cannot lay off or retrenchment his working without the government permission. So this policy has been included and introduced with the purpose of easy hire and fire policy. Now, this code also introduced new conditions for carrying out of legal strike. Earlier time period for a legal strike was 14 days of notice, prior notice, and there was no provision for arbitration proceeding. But after introduction of this code, the time period for arbitration proceeding has been included as the prerequisite condition for going on legal strike. So this is example that a worker, any worker of any establishment cannot go on strike without providing at least 60-day notice, and not while the proceeding before a tribunal or national industrial tribunal are taking place. So if suppose any arbitration proceeding is pending, then no worker can go on strike. And if they want to go on strike at all, then they have to give at least 16 days prior notice. And even they have to wait for the conclusion of this proceeding. That means that after conclusion of these proceedings, workers are disallowed from going on strike for the period of 16 days. So they have to wait till the proceeding in the pending in the National Industrial Tribunal or any tribunal to concluded. Now this code has been expanded to cover all industrial establishment. That means the definition of industrial establishment has been covered, and it also covered a public sector undertakings. So suppose at present a person employed in any public utility service like water, electricity, natural gas, telephone, other essential services. So they cannot go on strike unless he gives notice for strike within 6 weeks before going on strike or within 14 days giving of such notice. This was earlier provisions, but now IR code is applicable to all industrial establishment. So this sector, public utility service sector employees cannot go on strike as provided in that code. Now, Industrial Relation Code 2020 is a framework to protect right of workers to form unions, as it is already amalgamated Trade Unions Act, with the intention to minimize the friction between employees and employers and workers, and to provide provision for investigation and settlement of industrial disputes. And at present, the settlement of dispute procedure itself is a very complex, because no prudent man or no layman could understand that complex proceeding. So these provisions are now have been simplified. And one key change which they have introduced is the definition of strike has been now amended to mass casual leaves. That means if over 50% of company's worker take a concentrate casual leave, then it will be treated as a strike. However, workers cannot go on strike without 60 days notice. So if at all 50% of workers need to go on strike, then also that condition, prerequisite condition of 16-day notice has to be satisfied. Another code is Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code. This was actually earlier known as the 13 known and recognized by 13 old central laws. These are the laws regulating the occupational safety and health and working condition of the person employed in the establishment. Now we discuss about the 13 acts which has been consolidated and amalgamated. That includes Factories Act 1948, Plantation of Labor Act 1951, Mines Act 1952, the Working Journalist and Other Newspaper Employees Act 1955, Working Journalist Wages Act, Motor Transport Workers Act, BD and Cigar Workers Act, Contract Labor Act, Sales and Promotion and Employees Act, Interstate Migrant Workmen Act, Cine Workers and Cinema Theatres Workers Act, Dock Worker Acts, Building and Other Construction Worker Act. Before giving this presentation, I myself was not knowing about that there exists such kind of acts, such like Sales Promotion Employees, Cine Worker and Cinema Theatre Acts. So these are the acts which has been introduced to the workers. Now the general public and the workers which are currently working in such an establishment are able to understand the law because the language has been more simplified. Now this code defines a migrant worker for the first time as someone who has come from his or her state to seek employment in another state and who earns up to the 18,000 per month. That means the 18,000 has been set as a ceiling limit. two conditions required to be satisfied. The person must come from another state with a purpose to seek an employment in another state. Now, by introduction of this definition, it is an expansion of the current definition, or adding those workers who are directly employed to those who are contractually employed. Therefore, the workers who are employed contractually and earning less than 80,000 per month are covered in this definition. Now, this act has certain features like registration of occupational safety and health, working conditions code. Duties of employer and employees are fixed now. Occupational safety, health, working condition, hours of work, annual leave with the wages, which are earlier defined in another acts, are now been included. Special provision relating to employment of women are enacted, and special provision for contract labor and interstate migrant worker are introduced. Now, in this act, prohibition of employment on contract labor is been introduced. Therefore, contract labor is now totally has been prohibited. Now, the certain industries are doing certain kind of agreements to the worker who are having audio and visual difficulties. That is also been prohibited. And employment of person below 18 years in the mines are provided. That means they are regulated and now recognized by the law. Earlier, persons below 18 years of age and mines are not provided with the opportunity to work. One another key feature is introduction to the journey allowance. Earlier provision in the act was temporary accommodation. Suppose the one worker has to work at a place which is far from his residence place, then the company need to give them residential quarter, and now employer is duty bound to provide a journey allowance to the worker to travel between his native place and the site of employment. And that journey allowance, the frequency of that journey allowances has been fixed, so that in a year 2 or 3 times he is able to claim for a journey allowance. And another introductory feature is that women employees is now permitted to work at the night, subject to certain conditions that are related to their safeties, holidays, working hours, and their consent. So now women employed with their prior consent can work in the night. Another key feature is code on social security. This is very important and a very vast act because this code covers and consolidate all the law related to social security with the goal to extend social security to employees and workers, either they are in organized sector, unorganized sector, or any other sectors. So we can give the meaning and expand the definition of any sector in this social security code. These are the act which has been now amalgamated in Code on Social Security Act. That is Employees Compensation Act, ESIC, EPF, Employment Exchange, Maternity Benefit, Payment of Gratuity, Senior Workers Welfare Fund, Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Cess, Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008. Now, in Employee Provident Fund, one provision has been enacted. Earlier, there is too much complexity in the procedure, like determination and assessment of due. So here, one provision to appeal to the tribunal has been provided. Suppose one worker is aggrieved from the determination and assessment of dues, then he can appeal to the tribunal. He can even challenge the order of the appellate authority. He can even challenge it on the ground of escaped amount. An appellate tribunal may levy the damages to the employer or to the defaulting party. Now, ESIC has been replaced with this code. So, in this act, there has been special establishment of the court has been introduced, which is known as Employees Insurance Court. and matters which are decided by employees insurance court have been specifically defined and provided, and jurisdiction of civil court has been excluded from the matters related to employee insurance. Powers of EI court proceeding before EI courts are specifically defined. Now, suppose if someone is aggrieved from the decision of EI court, then he or she may be provided with an opportunity or remedy to appeal to the High Court within a period of 16 days from the date of order. Now, this is the chapter on gratuity. Now, gratuity is in literal meaning. We all understand that the gratuity is the amount provided to the employee who has worked for an organization for considerable period of time. Here, that period has been defined as a 5 years. Earlier, a person who has worked for 1 year was also entitled for a gratuity, but now this time the period has been allowed to the 5 years. So, payment of gratuity after rendering continuous service not less than 5 years have been provided the right for the gratuity. Here, continuous service has been defined. Earlier, it was not defined, so it was interpreted with the katana of the decision of Supreme Court. And in this act, nomination facility is also been provided. And procedure of determination of amount of gratuity was also provided. There is one provision for compulsory insurance of all the employees working in the establishment, and competent authority, those persons who are aggrieved or those persons who could not claim their gratuity are now can approach to the competent authority. Then the Maternity Benefit Act, which was earlier was a separate act, has been now included in Social Security Code. So employment of the or work by women was prohibited certain period. That is also included in this act. And now they can claim the payment of maternity benefit as a right, as it is defined as a right to payment of maternity benefit act in the maternity benefit code. In this code, first time, the duties of the employer towards the woman who has gone for the maternity benefit has been fixed, and the inspector come facilitator has been defined to be appointed by the central government, who have certain powers to direct the employer to issue certain payments or disburse certain payments. Now, this is the vast code, earlier known as Workers' Compensation Act, Employees' Compensation Act, has been now included with more clarity and less complexity in the Code on Social Security 2020. It provides compulsory reporting to the competent authority within 7 days of the death or serious bodily injury. Earlier, that was not mandatory to report to anyone. Suppose in any plantation, an employee or a worker, uh, uh, an employee or worker sustain a death, a fatal or non-fatal injury, then there was not a no compulsory reporting. But this code has introduced compulsory reporting to the competent authority within the 7 days from incident, and employer's liability for compensation towards such incidents has been fixed. Earlier in the code, there was no predefined calculation or methodology to calculate the compensation or the monthly wages. What is the procedure adopted till now is the deciding the compensation according to the decisions of Supreme Court, tribunals, and landmark judgments. But in this act, methods of calculating monthly wages for purpose of compensation has been provided. Another key feature is that periodic review of a change in the condition of the employee for purpose of continued increase and decrease payment. That means, suppose an employee sustained injury, serious bodily injuries, and due to that he has 15% or 20% disability, and by the passage of time, any employee his disability suppose increased or decreased, then there must be a periodic review to assess whether the compensation is provided should be continued, whether it should be increased or whether it should be decreased. Another provisions are notice and claim. Earlier, notice and claim has to be decided by the court. Court has to fix the date for the notice and the statement of claim. Then another date was given for the defense, another date was given for the hearing. Now here prescribed pro forma has been given, and it has been defined as a time limit that within the 2 years from the occurrence of accident or the death, notice and the claim shall be set up or shall be moved within 2 years from such an date. Another provision which is notable is that a special provision relating to accident occurring outside the Indian territory has been introduced. This was not provided in earlier acts. Suppose any company has been established in India and their workers are working abroad, then they were not able to claim from the employers who have their establishment in India, because there was no any remedy and no method to assess or to investigate whether that accident has occurred during the course of employment or not, because the authorities and executive powers of that separate country has not been provided with a clear cut mechanism or data. So this provision relating to accident occurring outside Indian territory covers the masters of ships or seamen, captain and other members of crew of aircraft, or person recruited by companies registered in India and working as such abroad. Now here that person means the person employed, either citizen or not citizens, that is not material point. Person is if employed by the company who is registered in India is liable to give compensation to the person who have sustained injury or death. Another key feature we can say that remedies for employee against stranger. Any accident or incident occur due to the fault of the stranger or the fault of the person unknown. So employer were earlier remediless. So suppose in any plantation or any such kind of operations, if any incident occur or accident occurs, then employer is now given remedy against the strangers. This code also gives the provision for the cases in insolvency of employer. Then it also gives the power to require from employer statement regarding to fatal accidents, which I have earlier mentioned that they have been now it has been now made compulsory to report the incidents of accident or fatal death. Earlier, Workmen Compensation Act deals with two cases. One is fatal and another is non-fatal. So it was not necessary to report both, but now it is necessary for employer to report such incident to the appropriate authority. Then registration of agreements for working condition has been now made compulsory. Suppose there is dispute between an employer and employee regarding to the compensation, then reference may be made to the competent authority. In this act, for the first time, form of application for claim of or settlement has been defined. It has been specified that what particulars should be mentioned and what particulars should not be mentioned. Then after, one more provision has been provided to deposit in advance for the amount of compensation related to the fatal accident. Then after, earlier procedure was not predefined. So the tribunal or the authority has to follow the procedure on their own according to the principle of natural justice and certain codes of conduct. But now here, powers in the procedure of competent authority has been defined. Then earlier the appearance of the party, recording the evidence, power to the submit cases have been running in the mechanical or traditional manner. that appearance of parties, method of recording evidence, evidence rules have not been strictly applied. But now, by introduction of this code, these entire procedures have been made clear and simplified. Another provision which is actually beneficial for the employee seeking compensation is that no appeal without the certificate from competent authority stating the deposit of payable amount shall lie. That means an competent authority has awarded certain amount of compensation to an employee. Earlier, there was no provision to deposit that amount. But now, by introduction of this code, employer need to first deposit the amount, then obtain the certificate with that effect that certain amount in fatal case has been already deposited. Then after he is able to prefer an appeal. Another feature is compounding of offenses. Because the courts are flooded with the variety of the cases in different acts, which has now been codified in the four major codes. So that was increasing the burden of the court also. So this provision has been provided related to the compounding of offenses. That covers that any offense committed for the first time, and that offense must not be punishable with imprisonment only, or any provision which states that imprisonment and also with fine. That is only compoundable. And it is provided that on application made either before or after institution of any prosecution may be compounded. Because earlier what was the procedure that once a prosecution was launched, there was no provision for compounding. So suppose if matter reaches to amicable settlement, then that effect was the to discharge. So here they have introduced that before and after institution of any prosecution, offenses may be compounded. And here one more feature has been added, which was not earlier clear. That means that suppose do not one some person has moved an application for compounding of offenses and failed to comply with that order, then he has to pay 20% of additional fine of the original fine. That means suppose 100 rupees has been provided as a maximum fine for particular offense and a person is not complying that order, then he has to pay 20%, that means 20 rupees in addition to 100 rupees to the fine. Now this code on social security has another enactment which covers social security and says in respect of building and other construction workers. It was earlier not codified because building and other construction workers are daily laborers. So here social security and says have been made compulsory. Then after social security for unorganized workers, and employment information and monitoring has been introduced. In this employment and information monitoring, it has been made compulsory to report about the vacancies of employment information. Suppose any vacancy arises, then they have to report the same to the competent authority. Thank you. So, I have concluded my session with respect to the codes, and I have tried to discuss about the key features and the so-called very discussed provisions here. So now it is time for the question and answer on any doubt clearing sessions.
Yes,
Because
yes.
it is very vast text, but one thing I
Yes,
want to
yes.
say that earlier these certain codes that are more than 29 codes
Yes,
which
sir.
are already in existence. So the
Yes, sir.
labor courts and industrial tribunals are flooded with the variety of cases,
Yes,
and
sir.
it is also very difficult for the judges to refer each and every time the separate courts and
Yes.
adjudicate a matter on merits because
Yes.
there are complex procedure established.
Yes,
So
sir.
now by introduction of these three codes, matters and adjudication process have been simplified. So it will be easier for a litigant, for a court, and for the aggrieved person. Okay.
Okay, sir, it was a really fantastic session. You have elaborated in a very peculiar manner, very fantastic manner, sir. Sir, we have some certain questions to you, sir, from the students.
Okay.
Sir, if suppose in a factory there is one any fatal accident took place due to the negligence of the safety department, means the safety department have not checked because the person was going at a height, okay, and the safety department without checking all the procedural law, without checking all the safety belts, and you know when you are going at a height you have to wear the safety belts, safety helmets, as well as you have to take the permission of the safety department. Now the question of the student is that if suppose without permission the person has went, so who is liable? Over here the safety department is liable or the workman who has died who is liable?
In this case, the certainly the worker has been liable because it is called as a contributory negligence, as it is in cases of motor accidents, motor vehicle accident act. But in
Okay.
this case, it needed to be proved that worker this accident or that fatal accident has occurred due to the fault of the worker. That is very impossible to prove. But as it is working in the premises, which is directly or indirectly in the responsibility of the employer and the safety department, so it is the direct responsibility of the safety department to compensate and to take care every measure, right? So in introduction of this code there is one provision that employers has to be given certain kind of duties, that they have to follow this certain kind of duties, which has been now fixed. Earlier this was the very unclear question, but if we see this incident in the light of introduced code, then the liability of safety department is made heavier. So according to my opinion, many may differ that safety department is liable because they have to take care to avoid any certain kind of incident or accidents.
Correct.
Correct.
Sir, one more question. That sir, suppose in a factory, you know, in a factories, those factories which are limited company, those who are the not private, they are not the private limited, they are limited company. Now, these limited company, they have to maintain their procedures. Okay. Now, if suppose a company who is not taking the auditable instrument, say for example, there is a welding machine in the industry, there is a other, say for example, there is a gas cutting machine, there are different machines. If they are not complying with the calibration procedures, so what penalty can be imposed by the factory inspector to, if suppose he came in the factory and while checking he found that the instrument are not not in the order, not with the auditable order, so what penalty can be imposed by the factory inspector to the employer?
Factory inspector first of all to give them notice, and I think there was one provision of necessary maintenance of this certain kind of instruments and fitness of these instruments. So I am not very much aware about the law and the certain provision, but yeah, I know that this is a compoundable offense.
Correct, correct.
And it is punishable with the, in earlier act it was punishable with the fine of 2000 rupees.
Okay.
In default in default of imprisonment of the 1 month. And recently the act has given the provision, but I am not aware about actual provision.
Okay.
So we need to first go deeper into the act.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir.
Okay.
Sir, one more question, sir. Sir, one student has asked that why this employment standing order came into the existence. What is the objective of this employment standing order?
Okay, so first of all, we need to understand what is the standing order. Earlier, it was that any organization having more than 100 workers, they must have a standing order drafted. Why it is required? Because you are managing a company or an establishment having
Yes.
employment of 100 workers, and if you are not maintaining a certain rule of code of conduct about the leave rules, about the working hours, about the facilities, about the standard operating procedures related to dismissal of employees, suspension of employees, and working conditions, then it would be very difficult for an organization itself to survive and
Yes.
to manage the entire operations which they are carried out for the purpose of businesses. So
Yes.
standard operating procedure, which is known as a standing order, is required to manage and to monitor the working condition of the workers, employees, as well as for the calculation of their wages. Because if we do not have any standing orders, then we are not able to assess that how much work a particular worker has done and how much salary he is entitled. Suppose for the calculation purpose of bonus, if we do not have any certain kind of rule and regulations that how to assess the performance of an employee, how
Yes,
much
sir.
leave he has obtained, whether he is serious or not, whether he is working towards the benefit or towards the increment of the organization or what. So this is standing orders are required, and certain establishment and certain, as I have mentioned in the PPT, that 16th state of India have already increased the threshold limit of from 100 to 300. So
Yes.
suppose if we are employing or we are establishing an organization which is having 100 or 200 workers, so we can do that without standing orders. So standing orders are code of conduct which needed to be maintained to maintain business also and maintain the operation also. So without standing order we can run the business, but then we are not able accountable to the management itself. So standing orders are essential as per my opinion. But
Yes, sir.
this three threshold limit, increasing threshold limit, so they can now shut down their operations, or they can now remove their employees without the permission of government. Because where there is a standing order, then earlier without permission of government they cannot shut down the industry or company. But now
Yes.
this increasing threshold limit, hire and fire policies are now totally free from the government intervention.
Correct, sir.
Correct.
Sir, one more question, sir. Right now, the COVID-19 is going on. Okay, and the various companies are taking out the employee from the factory. So, can you just elaborate in just 1 or 2 minutes that what can be the provision the workman can file where and he can file the case?
Okay, suppose as per considering COVID pandemic situation, companies are going out of funds, and companies have to restrict their operations. They have to remove certain employees from the employment. There are many provisions available to the employees. Suppose their removal is unwarranted, then they may claim for the compensation and reinstatement of their employment. So first of all, if they are removed and they what they want, according to that, the remedy is available. Suppose they want reinstatement, then they have to approach the labor commissioner first. Then labor commissioner will call upon employer. They will try to conciliation efforts of conciliation would be made between employer and employee. So labor commissioner is the authority. Then after labor commissioner will make an reference to the labor court. So employee if wants reinstatement, then he can approach the labor commissioner. Suppose he only wants the wages, then he can again approach the labor court directly or the labor commissioner for recovery of the wages. Another option is that suppose an employee is employed in an organization for more than 5 years continuously. So he is having continuous service. So in addition to reinstatement and recovery of wages, he can also claim for a payment of gratuities because it is his right. So these
Yes.
are the three remedies available. And
Yes.
suppose these codes have been now introduced after 23 September of 2020. So
Yes, sir.
suppose any employee wants to approach and have remedies, then he has to avail complex remedies provided between various laws according to the old law. So there
Yes,
are
sir.
provisions.
Hello. 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 Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, one last question. Sir, suppose a person has worked for around about 4 years, 6 months,
Mhm.
and while working, he died in the industry. So, whether he is eligible for the gratuity?
Yes, certainly he is eligible in the gratuity, because earlier the calculation of the period of the eligibility for gratuity and continuous period was not given. But in case of fatal accident, suppose he has worked 6 months more, barabar. So it is not the fault of that employee that he has not completed certain services. So he is eligible for gratuity, and there are direct judgments of Supreme Court as well, which you can find on the online
Yes, sir.
repositories.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
So it was very fantastic session, sir, and you have given a very systematic answer on each question the student which have asked. So I really have a great privilege that you have contributed your valuable time to Parul Institute of Law, Parul University, sir. And I am also thankful to Dr. Akhil Sayyed sir and Mr. Jiten Kubani sir, who has devoted their time for this event, and Jiten Kubani sir, who is the organizer of this event, because all the telecast has to be incorporated at right time. So I am very much thankful to Jiten Kubani sir also. Akhil sir, you want to say something? Akhil sir, are you there? Akhil sir, I think he
No
might.
issue, sir. But
Yeah,
I want to thank you all for
yeah, sir, yeah,
providing an
sir.
opportunity during this pandemic situation, because we are having a certain kind of limited work, and
Yes,
by
sir.
conducting such kind of a seminar and webinars,
Yes, sir.
our knowledge is also going to be increased.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So I am hoping for the more and more such kind of
Yes,
webinars
sir.
to be
Sir,
conducted.
we always invite you, sir, and Anand is nearby to us, so we do not have any problem. We can also, we can come to your court also. So we have on already. I and Parul Institute of Law also want that you should come at our college. We will invite you, sir, at our college to have a practical session at our college, so that the our student can also have a greater aspect of knowledge, because you people are really working very hard in the courts, because all the judgments and all you have to writing at your home, so it is also one of the important aspect. Just Akhil sir has just joined. Akhil sir.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Fine, means go ahead.
So, yes, sir. So it was really fantastic session, sir. And thank you to Akhil sir also. Thank you to Jiten Kubani sir. And thank you to, lastly, to the guest, Chetan Limbasia sir. And we are very much thankful and obliged, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Thanks
this.
to, and lots of thanks, tons of thanks to PDJ Saab also. We are highly obliged to PDJ Saab for extending this cooperation, and we will definitely have liaison with DLS Anand also, and we will continue with this series of such programs. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Highly
sir.
obliged.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. And then